Okay, when you order material, your black or your color is always the resin. The clear is always activator. Resin will go in the tank that has the black tape. Activator always goes in the tank with the red tape. So when you get your material, you cut the safety tab and you can get your channel locks and open the material just like so. I always save the empty buckets on at least one. So this material here, this has been opened. Now once that's open, snug the tank or the lid back down. On your black resin, you always want to take the material upside down, shake the material for a couple of minutes, because this is a high solids material. Like any good quality paint, pigment will settle. Then you take the lid off. Best thing to do is always take your bucket, come over to the machine, open your lid. Inside you have a strainer. You have tabs which will mark your full, 3/4, half, and quarter tank. What you can do here is you just take the strainer, push it up and down like you're churning butter, and that will keep your material mixed on a regular basis. I always have this rotated this way, so that way when I fill up I can actually stop. Kill it. Been mixed, you can take your bucket and you just simply pour the material in. Once the material has been poured in, you can wait, you get your bucket half empty, shake it again to make sure you get all the pigment, and then dump the rest of the material in. Each tank will hold 2 of these buckets. So in other words, you can put 2 kits of material in each tank. You always want to keep it full. When you're done, you close the lid, and you can always check by where this tab is on how full you are. Right now, I am just a hair under half full. So that's plenty of room for me to add a whole another 5-gallon pail. Once you're done, you close your lids. The activator side, you will do the same thing. You would add activator in here. And the reason we have plastic between the tank and lid is because the activator will harden when it's exposed to air. You don't want it sticking to your rubber gasket and tearing your gasket. And then you just keep this closed. Usually your tanks drop equally. Activator, resin. When you're not in use, close the lid. It keeps the heat inside like wearing a hat in cold weather. So the material's in the machine. So what we're going to do now is I've got the machine cycling. I've got the temperature set at 100 to 105. Very easy. If you need to go up, you hit set, and I arrow up to 105. I hit set, and now my temperature will automatically heat it up to 105. This is your speed control. Usually when you're in night mode, that means your speed's all the way up. Your toggle switch is pushed down. This is on, which is your breaker. And inside, this is your loop wire. So this keeps the pumps cycling every 4 hours for 10 minutes. So inside, you're coiled up, you're hooked up to your tanks, and you're on night mode. So now I'm ready to spray. I've checked my material. I will now turn toggle switch up to spray mode. I will set my speed, and for a beginner, I would say, let's start at 40. So you set your speed on 40. At that point, we now take our gun, which yours is going to be cleaner than mine. This is your start and stop button. So you want to push down for stop. You take your mixing tube and retaining it. Always make sure that this static mixer is inside your tube, and you have at least an inch gap between the nut and your static mixer. We thread the retaining nut on. Take a crescent wrench, snug that. Now, in your case, we're using air, so I set the spray tip right here, so the tube itself is flush or just barely recessed. You don't want it deep, you don't want it like, you do not want it like that. You want your tip and just slightly turn it to where it's flush. Then you hook up your air hose and the fitting that I sent you, and it just snaps on. You just compress this and it will come off. These spray tips are reusable, so you can use this for up to 10 trucks. Throw it away, get a new one on. This slips off, it slips on. It's a quick release. You're going to be using your air hose, so we hook our air to this. Our fluid line hooks to here. We have a swivel nut and a threaded fitting for the activator side, because if we used a quick connect, it would get hard and it would be hard to disconnect every time. So this is always your activator, this is always your resin. So we will hook up the fluid lines. This is your air filter and dryer, the exact same one that you purchased. We have air coming in, and then we set our regulator. So this is where we're going to practice and spray and dial whether we go up or down in air temp or pressure. I will get this dialed in so you can start exactly at the same pressure I set this at. This indicator here tells you blue, change, or white, immediate. So right now, being brand new, this is blue. So depending on your air compressor, most air compressors have a dryer, and you want to remove as much moisture out of your line, and that's what this does. It removes 99.9% of your moisture or contaminants. As long as you're in good shape here, you should have no issues with your air compressor and the air spraying out. So now we come over here, and I will unthread this loop. This stops the pumps. I will now thread this into my gun. So now when I turn my switch, it starts the pumps, that stops. So you have the kill switch at your fingertips. We've already set the speed at 40. So now we're going to disconnect the fluid lines, the activator again. A lot of times, depending on how often you spray, the swivel nut locks up a little bit. And we just take a pair of pliers, and I will put it on the swivel nut itself, and you hold the nut here and it breaks it loose. And a little bit of Vaseline on that fitting will help keep it from hardening up on you. So we disconnect the activator line first. This will thread right onto here. I'm doing a video, Sharon. Stop. Ready? On. Yep. All right, your activator line is on. It's still loose. You disconnect your resin line. It automatically plugs into here. Make sure it's connected. Now both lines are connected. We want to pull out our fluid line. You have 50 feet. In a lot of cases, you don't need all 50 feet. So pull out what you think you need. Shut the door and your lid, and we pull out our 50 feet. Now what you want to do here is just kind of get your lines uncurled. So we have enough uncurled. And then I get the excess line back over here, so if I need it, it's here, and I can pull it. Now your air hose, which we sent you, is wrapped in your fluid lines here. So all we do here, now that I'm untwisted, with that, so you would simply hook up your air and take a tie strap, and I will and this helps hold it in place. Right there, your tie strap is in. Now that we have our line the way we want, we're going to just run a couple pieces of tape. And this just keeps your lines kind of in line where they need to be. Pause for a minute. So now we're ready to spray. The last thing we do is I'll make sure that my air hose and my fluid line are kind of side by side. Now, again, your air hose is wrapped in the snake wrap. And we're going to just run a couple pieces of tape here to hold our air hose with our snake wrap. All right, so now that we're tied together, the last thing we do is we get our position. So while we're spraying, and I spray over my shoulder, so you position your hose where it feels good, and you'll take your activator line, snug it up. So it is now tight. And of course, obviously the air hose gets hooked up. So now you are hooked up, ready to spray. Any position. So the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to get my breather mask on, and once we start, you do not stop. This is not an on-off switch while you spray. You start, and I would suggest practicing on cardboard or plexiglass, but you're basically going to make your movement like you're broom sweeping a floor. Back and forth, wet on wet, no more than 2-3 feet in length on a smooth surface. On the truck, you'll have a video of me spraying so you can see how I do the whole truck, but you want to practice on plexiglass or cardboard first. Get comfortable with the fluid speed, the texture, everything that you need to do. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to set up on a piece of cardboard so we can dial our air and fluid speed. Now, I spray at a faster speed because I've got a lot more time involved. Start at 40, get your comfort level, and then speed up, slow down, and then you can determine your fluid speed and pace to get the thickness that you want. And then we'll talk about doing a texture on, you want an ultra fine texture All you need to do is, when you're done spraying, for instance, I'll spray at 55, and when I do a texture coat, I'll turn this down to 30. So less material comes out, the air stays the same, you get that real fine atomization, and you get a real nice texture. Most people don't want a fatter texture, but if you wanted to, you could leave it right where you spray and just get a nice pebble finish. So we're going to start here at 40, practice, and see how everything dials in. I'll get our air pressure dialed in. Paul's going to come over and help me with that. And then we'll start on the truck, and then you'll just kind of watch how I do the truck, and you'll see a complete video on that. And the air set at 30. So we're going to do a practice spray. I'm not going to stop. I have a guy that's going to dial up or down. So we're ready to start. And this here is a real nice spray texture. Dial down to 25 on my air. So when you're spraying a flat surface, you would spray back and forth, wet on wet. All right, so we have the air set at 25. The fluid is at 40. So let's spray a piece. Back and forth, wet on wet. Okay, Paul. What's the 45? Okay, now that was, the fluid speed was at 40 to 45, and the air is set at 25, which is almost... Now we're going to do the tailgate. You want to spray into the wire tape. Make 4 to 5 passes, and then spray up straight. And here, 2 passes on the high side of the rib, 1 in the middle, 2 passes on the high side, and just straight across. The wire tape 4 to 5 times, and then repeat right on back to the other side again. Okay, Paul, down to 25. Okay, 25 seems to be a good air pressure, and 40 to 45 on your fluid speed. So now this is done, except for the drop coat. So now we're going to start up on the truck, and I'm going to go up here to 45. All right. don't turn the fluid speed up to about 58. Or 48. Ready?
He'll tell you after.
All right, now that you're done spraying, you immediately remove the mixing tube before you do anything else. You remove the mixing tube, throw it away. Then you'll hold your gun, push the start button. You want your material to run through, shut it off. What that does, it will purge your chamber if any coagulation builds up. If you leave your tube on there for 5 minutes, the material touching works its way back in and will coagulate and block your chamber. So immediately remove the tube, purge your gun. Now you can let this hang and go tear down the truck, pull the wire tape, do whatever you got to do, put it back together. If you're done spraying for the day, then we will go through, at this point, you wind up your hose, we pull the gun chamber, so once you've disconnected your fluid lines, hook them back into the machine, you would then take your gun chamber, the squeeze bottle, you got xylene, close the lid, squeeze through each chamber each time. That cleans it out. Take a rag, clean your fitting here, and then you blow it out with air. Now immediately after that, once you're done, a little bit of Vaseline, cut a little bristle brush down, and you brush it on the threads, you brush it here on your threads, and you're done. That's it. You put the gun away. And you also can use this same Vaseline over here, and I put a little bit on the threads here, and then when I hook the swivel nut back on, which is this part right here, the swivel nut, then I brush a little bit of Vaseline right here, and that'll help keep it from hardening up or sticking. So we'll have the video of that complete process in a minute.
Napkins, wrench, glove. Hoses are a pain to roll up, but it's a lot easier with 2 people to help you. It helps when this gun can spin. It helps with 2 people. That's good for now. Napkin. Tighten that up, finger tight, because it needs to rotate while you put that hose in there. Wipe your ends off so you don't get material everywhere. Check your fittings. Finish rolling your hose. Disconnect your gun.
There's no trading.
Hook up the loop. Get the loop in there. There's the door. Check your fittings. Finish tightening your activator. Check those. There's your machine. Let's purge. Night mode. Get your xylene. About 2 squirts each way. You want to squirt until the xylene clears up. About there. Wipe your ends off. Now, did you tell me about soaking this in xylene? If you soak this in xylene, it'll tear up the rubber bushing in there and you won't be able to fit your connector in there. And you'll have to replace this. So when you squirt xylene in there, you want to blow it out as soon as possible. And you don't want to soak this gun in xylene because it'll tear up any bushing. Grab air. Set your gun in there. Lock up, and that's it. Good to go.